quite an introduction, but I love being here at Bethpage State Park. I mean, one of the thrills of my 12 years was helping to bring the U.S. Open here. The first time the USGA ever came to a public golf course, the U.S. Open was ever played on a public golf course. It was truly the People's Championship, and it's still known as the greatest Open, so I'm always thrilled to be back here. It's always good to be with friends at state parks, because whenever I land in a state park, I always see some old friends, like Sue Giuliani, and I'm going to tell you a quick story about Sue, and I think the St. Joseph sisters will get a kick out of this. Sue started at state parks as a seasonal at Jones Beach. Let me tell you where she is now, and I take a little pride in helping to promote her up through the system. She's not only the first female manager of Jones Beach State Park, she is in charge of all the oceanfront state parks. Stand up, Sue. Stand up, turn around. Take it out. But here's my cute story. When I first met Sue, it was my first, I went to every single state park. And Jones Beach, of course, the great one. So I was there, and there was a Catholic school unloading children to tour the park. And then it was time for them to all go home. So all the kids were getting back on the bus. And I noticed Sue, didn't know who she was, walked up to her and said, "Sister, you're going to miss the bus." And she said, "Oh, Commissioner, I work for you. I'm not a nun." But it was her demeanor, she's just absolutely, the demeanor has never changed. So if you ever want one last career, I know what it can be, Sue. I want to thank Charlotte Biblow, who's on the board of Sustainable Long Island. Charlotte is a partner at Farrell Fritz, and her partner, Jack Marnowski, is my estate attorney. And Jack called me and said, "Would you speak?" And very few people say no to Jack for anything. And I was delighted. So I'm thrilled to be here. Charlotte, you opened that door. Speaking of estate planning, my daughter is here today, Terry Keogh. Terry runs our commercial real estate, so that I could work for state parks for 12 years, and she does a great job, and I'm delighted to have her with us today. Thanks, Terry. Amy Engel, your executive director. I think you're really lucky to have Amy Engel, who called me as soon as I accepted and reminded me of your triple threat: environmental health, economic development, and social equity. And that's a very dynamic trio of goals. By the way, Sustainable Long Island is lucky to have Amy Engel, and I salute her for her hard work and her great personality. So there's another Amy that has been a dear friend for years. She's one of the founding board members and one of the longest serving board members. Amy Hagedorn is here, and I'm delighted for that. And Kevin McDonald, who is great. I knew and worked with Kevin. Nature Conservancy, Kevin, he's quite a guy. Representatives from government, wonderful local municipalities are here. Also, representatives for U.S. Senators Gillibrand and Schumer are here. And the governor's Long Island rep, Scott Martella, is here. If you're a government, either appointed or elected official or a representative, would you stand and let us recognize you? Because we can't do a public-private partnership without the public. So are you here? Stand up. And don't be shy. We thank you for your attendance today. Balance is the key word, and I think Sustainable Long Island gets that. Organizations that demonstrate balance and compromise are the ones that should be at the table. I spoke with Kevin McDonald, and we reflected back on a few successes that I had with Nature Conservancy. Certainly the governor's effort to protect land out in Montauk and buy additional and protect lands on Long Island was very successful. And yes, with the Nature Conservancy as a partner, we protected the darling little piping plovers. They're doing well at Jones Beach. They had a little setback with Sandy, but they're back. And even though some of our friends to the Far East wanted to have piping plover barbecues, we at state parks found that they really can coexist, and they're flourishing. So I thank Nature Conservancy for their partnership. I want to also say that the rumor has it that a private partners come back and that there will be fireworks at Jones Beach on July 4th again. And I can't tell you what that will mean. Yes, you can apply to the people of Long Island. I wouldn't want to be the first to say it might be a story of federal savings that's doing it, but you didn't hear that from me. And talking about great private partners, we have the air show. I remember the first Memorial Day weekend air show. It was phenomenal. And Bethpage Federal Credit Union was there then, and they continue to be here now. So Capital One, who's a great sponsor here today, we're looking for a role for you too. It was a little difficult to find the exact partnership over lunch, but I know that the State Parks team will find one, and we appreciate your philanthropy all over Long Island and your sponsorship today, to be sure. One other thing Kevin told me, which I thought was interesting, he reminded me of a 2009 survey conducted by the Trust for Public Land. And in this report, they proved that parks, all parks, not just state parks, municipal parks, pocket parks, urban parks, any kind of park, brought to the table $2.74 billion of direct economic benefits to this region. And how they got there was boosting tourism, reducing the government contribution, improving air quality, public health, revenue, tax dollars, and even if you don't buy the entire report, you cut it in half, it's still $1 billion. So that's a serious economic engine. And thank you, Kevin, for reminding me of that. Russ Albanese, who's another board member, has a great sustainable Long Island project in Wyandanch. It's really wonderful that his project is helping an underserved community, and it's a private developer. And why does a private developer step in to a community that's been there all along and has been waiting for some help? Because the government has decided to chip in and do some infrastructure work. And both at the state level with Governor Cuomo, the federal level, the local level, the towns, there are a lot of champions. So a private developer has an incentive that, okay, I'm going to not have to carry the mother load, and in return, the public sector has wonderful things for the community. Some affordable housing, some parkland. State government not only invests in acquisitions, but in the acquisition of brownfields. Nobody wants to buy brownfield, but government can, and they do, and that's great. Zoning changes. The private developer needs help. The public partner says, we're going to help you. The town of Babylon worked with the MTA to buy property. So nothing was easy, but the end result is that Wyandanch could very well be the poster child for a really good project where everybody is almost a total winner. Right. So, going to end up with affordable housing, retail development, a train station, an urban park. And I'm definitely biased when it comes to having an urban park, some little parkland. And I think developers is creatively looking forward. You don't have to own the parkland. I mean, if you develop the parkland for the municipality and hand them the keys, I think that's terrific. So that obviously it becomes a not-for-profit and it is run by the municipality, because you really can't make money running an urban park. There's no parking. And here's a little insider thing for you. We at State Parks, of all the different activities we make money on, the biggest revenue generator is parking. Not the greens fees here at Bethpage, but parking. So whenever we have a park that has no parking, I used to get very nervous. So, urban parks, pocket parks, little gazebos, beautiful little green spaces, community gardens, all those are wonderful. And I think if the private developer makes them wonderful, then they can hand it back to the municipality to keep it up. So the media is buzzing with projects from the town of Hempstead, town of Oyster Bay, town of Babylon, lots of substance. We've all been watching the project at the Coliseum. I know it's going to have a happy ending, but the happiest for me would be for the Islanders to come back. They've got to come back. And, you know, but yes, we could please applaud for that. We want to have a season here. I think government needs to understand continually that it's not a sin for the private sector to make a profit. And as the meetings go on with not-for-profits and community organizations, as the developer's trying to get his or her arms around where this profit will be, I think it's important to remember that. And it's also important for the public sector to remember that time is money. And I think expediting all the processes, whatever they may be, and there are so many of them, is critical. Expediters within each agency, that would be a great use of taxpayer money. That each agency would have nothing more to do than be an expediter. And how fast can you move that out and be held accountable by the commissioner or the director of that particular agency? We want the private sector to invest more money in projects that Sustainable Long Island really cares about. Oh, they're out there in the higher end neighborhoods, they're buying, you know, they're going to do fine. But that's not where we need them. And so we need affordable housing. I have someone that works for us that is just blown away that she can't find a one bedroom for under $2,000 a month to rent. That's so hard. So we need to, Sustainable Long Island has a real substantive role in pulling together partnerships and in getting those deals out the door. There's another story being written now in the Hamptons Bay. And I'm bringing it up because it's not in the celebrity part of town. But it's going to have a 40-acre park in downtown, which is going to be phenomenal. So what did we do at state parks that gave it a little more business sort of twist to it? And by the way, I'm not going to give you when I was commissioner, because let me tell you, current commissioner Rose Harvey is phenomenal. Rose Harvey, the state parks commissioner, comes out of making deals for the Trust for Public Land. She's a negotiator, she gets it, she's worked with the private sector, and I love Rose Harvey. So if any of you know her, text her, email her, tell her Bernadette Castro said you were the best. But what we did years ago is the legislature used to have to approve every single concessionaire deal that state parks made. And it wasn't working. Talk about time. So I went to one of my budget hearings, I said, this isn't working. You have to give me some leeway according to guidelines. If a partner is going to invest $1 million in one of our facilities, whether it's a hotel at Saratoga or a restaurant or a golf shop, and they're going to invest $1 million, that should entitle me to negotiate for X amount of years of leases. If they invest $20 million, you let me go out many more years. And so we came up with a formula, and the legislature passed it, so that state parks has the flexibility to get out of businesses we don't belong in, and that the private sector should be in. This magnificent place, for example. When the US Open, USGA came to us and said, we think you could have an open here. I remember the governor saying, great idea, as long as you can find the money. And I panicked because it was all capital. We needed a total renovation of the Black Horse. We needed a new clubhouse. This room wasn't here, okay? We needed a new golfing facility, a new driving range, or the USGA wasn't touching. So the first thing was the golf course. The USGA said, okay, here's what we need, get your bids, get going. And I said, okay, let's wait a minute here, because if I put it out to bid, most likely I'll have to take the lowest bidder, which probably wouldn't work for your standards, maybe not, maybe so. I said, so here's what you should do. You go out and spend the money. You go ahead and invest in the golf course the way you want it, and wrap it up with a red bow and say, New York State, congratulations, here's your present. They loved it. They did it. They didn't give us any cash that first US Open. They put $3 million in this golf course and continued to go over budget. Reese Jones never even took a fee. That's why there's a boulder with his name on it. And you know what? They went over budget, they went over budget. I didn't care. You know why? Because it wasn't your money. There are partnerships that can be done like that all over, all the agencies at New York State. This magnificent, Steve Carl, and he was here earlier, the operator, he's invested, since he took over pre-US Open 02, $10 million in this facility. Our golf professional at the time invested $3 million in a new driving range. So, you know, you can add up the numbers, and we did this all over the state. Because we don't belong in the food and beverage business. We don't know how to run a driving range, really. We keep up the golf course. We're good at that. We maintain the golf course, but we're not operators. So I think it's important for the public sector to know what they do well and what they should not do at all. And they should work with concessionaires and work with the private sector. So, moving on, and I know you've had a long sort of session. I can't mention the US Open without thanking Dave Catalano, who ran this magnificent facility, and of course Craig Currier, who was the superintendent of superintendents. But what the beautiful thing was, as the ultimate partnership, is the state park police worked with the state police. During the Open, and remember it was 6 months after 9/11, we had sniper teams on the roofs. We had to clear and all the grounds every night. We had to sweep the tent area. Nobody knew the stress we were under to see that the US Open in 02 would not be remembered for another hit, an attack, or a bomb. That was not the story that we wanted. And we had 50,000 people coming the last day. And I remember going to church on that Sunday, it was Father's Day, saying, "Dear Lord, I got 50,000 people here today. Let nothing happen to them." And nothing did happen, and we were thrilled. But state DOT worked with local DOT. We had a war room. We had state DOT with laptops. If the LIE was getting jammed, they changed those little signs and shifted everybody over. The MTA had more buses, more trains. The state of New York is powerful when you unleash it to work with municipalities. And when these big agencies filter on down and work with local agencies, there's really nothing, no project that is too big and that can't be pulled off. And because of all that work, you do have the Barclay in 2016, you do have the PGA Championship in 2019, you have the Ryder Cup in 2024. That's huge. That's huge. But I have to just tell you 2 more anecdotes about that. So we renovated the golf course. Everybody insisted that it be open to the public before Tiger Woods got here. They didn't want the pros to play it first. Guess what? The reservation system jammed. People were breaking into the... we had to do sting operations. We caught guys hiring people by the hour to go wait in line. We had to... It was amazing what people were doing to get a tee time on the black course. Out-of-staters. So that was an easy fix. We said charge them twice what New Yorkers pay. New Yorkers loved it. They saw Jersey plates, they went, "Yeah, you're paying double. Enjoy my golf course." Naming opportunities for those small pocket parks and all the, you know, partnerships. You got to have a little parkland. You see an amenity for development, especially in an underserved community. A park is a great amenity. But you can do things with that. You can have a gazebo, and you can have a private name on the gazebo in memory of someone, and get your 100,000, whatever it's going to cost you to put the gazebo up. We did that. It was revolutionary. People were afraid I was going to put corporate names on parks, which we never did. But we put people's names on parks. Yeah, Donald Trump gave us 400 acres in the Hudson Valley, and he got his Donald Trump State Park. It couldn't be Trump Organization. Doris Duke, $5 million to acquire Sterling Forest. Unbelievable. Her foundation said we need to elevate her image. Just don't do any hunting in this 1,500 acres. And we said, okay. We took the $5 million. It's the Doris Duke Wildlife Refuge. Frank Lautenberg, Senator Frank Lautenberg was wonderful at Sterling Forest, which is a giant park divided between really the New York and New Jersey boundaries. So it was a bi-state effort. But Senator Lautenberg met with us early on and said, I will give $1 million for a visitor center for our family name. And we loved it. Guess what though? It wasn't working for the senator. Red tape was enormous. Some of our staff was delayed, difficult. We found a rattlesnake den, they had to move it. It was awful. He was ready to pull the money. So the region came and said, am I off the record? Can I be off the record with this story? Hopefully. But anyway, so they said, we're going to lose the senator's money. And I said, we're not. I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to sit down with him. I flew to Washington. He met with me. He was charming and wonderful. And I said, Senator, you've got to give us another shot at this. You're going to get your visitor center. You're going to get the building you want. We're going to fast track it. You got to believe me. And he shook my hand. He came to the table. We got that money and more. And he and his family were thrilled at the groundbreaking and later the opening. So, think of him with fondness because he did something great for the state park system in addition to all the wonderful things he did in government. Naming opportunities are a good thing. We had an official soft drink for a while. It was Coca-Cola, then it was Pepsi-Cola, and then we decided, you know why we stopped it? Because our concessionaires in food and beverage, they didn't want to switch. They said, we get deals with this company and you're forcing us to work with that company, so okay, we'll let that one go. Ron Delzner and the Jones Beach Theater. Ron Delzner is one of probably the best outdoor arena operators in the world. He invested $20 million in my day. It's probably up to 30 now. But he came knocking at the door. He wanted to name the arena for Nikon. He wanted it to be the Nikon Theater. And we said no. And the compromise was it could be Nikon at Jones Beach Theater. Nikon at the Jones Beach Theater. And we policed that. And guess what? We also get a cut of it, right? We get a third of that annual sponsorship money going into state parks. So, you can embrace partnerships and do it well. And I just don't want the public sector to get queasy about bringing the private sector into parkland as long as it's done with good taste. We got Ford Motor Company to turn an abandoned bathhouse, which West End 1 Beach, abandoned, with 9 acres of asphalt. We pulled out most of the asphalt, left enough for cars. Ford Motor Company paid for the renovation. What was it called? The Teddy Roosevelt Nature Center. And Ford got a little bronze plaque on the front of the building, not very big. That's okay. So, it's challenging and fun, but there's money out there. Just like I said, Capital One, we're coming after you, baby. Get ready. So, did I have a few failures? Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted 12 cabins at Camp Hero in Montauk so bad. So badly. They were going to be 2-bedroom, 1 bath, because families are having a hard time going out east for the week. It's so not affordable. And you know who fought me? The Chamber of Commerce. And they won. And I never got my cabins. And I tried to explain to them, we're going to sell out. We're going to be so sold out, it'll have to go to a lottery. And we're going to put the Chamber of Commerce in Montauk right on our website. You're going to get more overflow, and you're going to get more business than you ever got before. I said, why is McDonald's always across from Burger King? Why are all the car dealerships or the furniture stores, they mainly are together? I couldn't do it. Another failure, and some of you in this room may not agree that it was a failure, I consider it a failure, is that we do not have Trump on the Ocean at Jones Beach State Park. It was a phenomenal project. Again, it was not your money. It was about $30 million in private money. And the deal that we made with Mr. Trump and Steve Carl, and it's nowhere now, it's gone, over. But the deal at the time was, our public beachgoer must always have the opportunity to buy a meal, a drink, at the same affordable price. Give them their own little bar, their own little pub. They have to be able to enjoy it because the only way, just for those of you that it makes sense, Jones Beach is very seasonal, correct? The only way a big operator like Steve Carl, who does an impeccable job at this place, can make it is to book weddings and events all winter long. And they need a certain type facility for that. So the architects worked with our historic preservation people. We really suffered to come up with a plan that was going to work. And it never worked. The other one that I still feel badly about is Kings Park. I fought for that 100 acres that's now in Nisqually River State Park. And I remember I fought with my colleague on the cabinet who ran Empire State Development at the time. And we were not happy with each other. He wanted the 100 acres of waterfront for the real estate community, and my job was to fight for the public access to the whole scene. It's magnificent. And I said, I only need 100 acres, you take the rest. He said, that's not fair. I said, well, hello. And Governor, what do you want to do? He said, I'm going with the 100 acres for the state park. Because Pataki was a very green Republican, so he was my buddy on that. I feel bad that Kings Park, which is now all owned by state parks, we need the private sector involved big time, and that's a Robert Moses, that whole chunk of land could use its own commissioner. But it's got enormous potential. A lot of cleanup, the government's stepping in again to clean up brownfields. We're getting state funding for that. Rose Harvey's gone to bat for that, and you have a lot of champions in government. You know, you do have Dean Skelos, you do have Steve Ballone, you do have Ed Mangano, you have Governor Cuomo, you have your, but sometimes the town of Smithtown wasn't always very helpful to us. So, those are the ones that did work. I still have faith that Kings Park's going to be great. Nisqually River State Park is fabulous, and I have a feeling it will continue to improve and improve and improve. But like Wyandanch and the Hamptons projects and so many others, there are more successes than not. And the press that's here today, you have a role to play in this, and you need to publicize the success stories. You need to take these home runs and make a very big deal of it. And I think you are, and you can't do enough. Or when a family or a benefactor steps up and underwrites a facility, that isn't just PR. It's really good news. And it should be covered. Because the press has got to be a partner. So